Hello, today I'm going to be doing the Picture This book tag, which was created by Jack at Spread Book Joy and Shelley Swearingen as part of a readathon they're doing this month of April for adults reading picture books. It's really fun. I joined in late, but I did have one wrap-up video recently about some books I had read, and hopefully I will get to another video completing the books I'm reading before the month ends. And I was tagged by Gina Stanier. And so anyway, these are the questions. Love You Forever, written by Robert Munsch and illustrated by Shelia McGraw. Name a book you imagine you'll love forever. Now, I imagine many people might think I'll go the easy route and name the book I have several editions of behind me, The Divine Comedy, in which I've had many videos about, or maybe even this book, which I absolutely love. One of my all-time favorites is Giovanni Boccaccio's Decameron, which if I get to 100 subscribers, I'm hoping to do 105 video series about, but I decided to do this book, which I have a previous video about, and hopefully maybe I can redo that video at some point now that I have more confidence in front of the camera, and there are a lot of more details I should have had in that review. The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu, and this is the classic translation from 1972 by Gia Fu Feng and Jane English. One of the reasons I love this book so much, it's just a great emotional bond with this book. Like, it's been with me through some very, very difficult times in my life, many, moves and traumas, dramatic events, many different states. It's never physically been out of my custody since my parents gave me permission to take it from their shelf and make it my own book. They've never asked for it back in all these years. They don't really care about it. So it's my book now, and it's one of the few books I've hugged. And it during the very, very difficult junior year of high school, which I've mentioned in a few videos, it was one of the few personal possessions I had when we were living by my paternal grandparents. And so looking through the pages and smelling the old book smell just emotionally takes me back to that very, very difficult time of my life. And it has lots of beautiful black and white photography in it, and that's one of the reasons I love this translation, because of the photography. And it also has in the original Chinese written on some of the sides, and just so many beautiful photographs. Obviously you can go back and watch that video if you're interested in more information about this book, but this is just the translation I am most emotionally attached to. And here are some of the reasons I absolutely love it. Here's one of my favorite chapters, one of the more famous ones, 47. Some of you might recognize this as the basis of the Beatles song, The Inner Light, which George sings lead on. Without going outside, you may know the whole world. Without looking through the window, you may see the ways of heaven. The farther you go, the less you know. Thus the sage knows without traveling. He sees without looking. He works without doing. This is also one of my absolute favorites, very meaningfully to me. I mentioned this and quoted this in a number of my books over the years, and it's also very instrumental in my own personal pacifism. As I've mentioned, I am not anti-military at all, and I believe there are some morally justified wars, but for me, myself, I am a pacifist. It's just, something that I feel very, very strongly about personally. Good weapons are instruments of fear. All creatures hate them. Therefore, followers of Tao never use them. The wise man prefers the left. The man of war prefers the right. Weapons are instruments of fear. They are not a wise man's tools. He uses them only when he has no choice. Peace and quiet are dear to his heart, and victory no cause for rejoicing. If you rejoice in victory, then you delight in killing. If you delight in killing, you cannot fulfill yourself. On happy occasions, precedence is given to the left. On sad occasions, to the right. In the army, the general stands on the left, the commander-in-chief on the right. This means that war is conducted like a funeral. When many people are being killed, they should be mourned in heartfelt sorrow. That is why a victory must be observed like a funeral. And this is just such a wonderful, meaningful, emotional book to me. I can't say enough good things about it, particularly not this classic translation. It's, one of those things, you get to know a translation and that just becomes one you're emotionally bonded to, even when, there are other translations out there and maybe they might be a little bit better or more scholarly or whatever, but this is just the one that has my heart all of these years because of the beautiful photography, the Chinese characters, and just, how it has been in my life through so many difficult things. I just have this bond with it. It's kind of like one of those books that's one of my friends, not just, a book I like on my shelves. 2. Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, Very Bad, No Good Day, written by Judith Viorst and illustrated by Ray Cruz. What books or comforting things do you turn to when you are having a bad day? Now, my favorite albums, particularly, are very, very special to me, and my favorite bands. I don't believe I've ever mentioned this before. My 5 favorite albums: Quadrophenia by The Who, All Things Must Pass by George Harrison, Empty Glass by Pete Townsend, Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme by Simon and Garfunkel, and Revolver by the Beatles. Those are just, help me, take me to my happy place, particularly the first two, Quadrophenia and All Things Must Pass. Many times they've just, helped to lift me out of a very, like, angry, like, frustrated, like, heartbroken place, and I'm feeling a little bit better by the time they finish playing. It's just like I can't say enough things about how emotionally bonded I am to these albums and to these artists as well. And also my favorite comedians I've mentioned in a few videos. I absolutely love Laurel and Hardy. My love for them was forged in fire during my very difficult junior year of high school. And I also love the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers. I'm particularly Curly in the Three Stooges. When I found out he had a real life limp, that like made me feel so much better about my own limp I was left with after my car accident. And even on one of my books, my first published book, one of the dedications was to all my fellow limpers, past and present, particularly Curly, because the main character in that book, Jakob, gets a limp after he jumps off of a death train, and later like joins the partisans and like takes control of his own destiny, like being like a Maccabee instead of someone just like going like a sheep to the slaughter and not fighting back. But anyway, his limp becomes a very big part of his identity, and just like a great trauma, like healing from that injury, learning to walk normally and realizing he'll never like be a non-limper again, and just it becomes part of your identity, having a limp. And I just love all the Three Stooges, and Shemp is my second favorite Stooge after Curly. I know a lot of people like to crap all over Shemp and insult him, but he was like really, really talented, and the only Stooge who had an actual acting career outside of being a Stooge, so he had a lot of good range. And if I am blessed with children before time runs out, I will name a son Samuel. I've always wanted to name a boy Samuel, and since Shemp's real name was Samuel, I will call my Samuel Shemp for short as well. So that's like a really cute nickname he'll have. Hopefully I will have a little Shempy before time runs out. I always, did like more strongly prefer having a son over a daughter because I'm so like tomboyish, and I feel I could relate better to a boy than a girl. But who knows, like maybe I would have a girl and she would be like a total tomboy just like I am, instead of like some stereotypically girly girl. So you never know what you're gonna get. And also I love the Marx Brothers. I got this from eBay maybe around like 2005, 2006. It's still for my favorite of their films, A Day at the Races from 1937. It's just such an absolutely classic film. The end of that film always puts a big smile on my face, even having seen it so many times, knowing what's coming. It just like makes me smile. So many wonderful things about this film. 3. The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. Which book series character sparked your hunger for reading? Now, as I've mentioned several times, Grimm's Fairy Tales was the first book I ever read at the age of 3. Obviously not all the way through at that age. I had hyperlexia, and that was just, the book that was right there. And it's not, oh, this looks cool. The illustrations look, fun, and the stories are interesting. And so I just started reading, and ever since then, I've always been reading. I was never a reluctant reader or someone who was reading but just needed a special teacher or book or whatever to give me that push. It's just, like writing. It's something I've always been doing ever since I was able to do it. And just, I don't have like a story, like an origin story, like, oh, I didn't like reading or I wasn't interested in writing until XYZ came along. It's just, an integral core part of my identity that's, just always been there. The way some people have a calling for a certain profession, that's, I have a calling to be like a writer and a reader. Number 4, Green Eggs and Ham by Dr. Seuss. What's the most unusual book you've ever read? Now, I previously did a video about this for middle grade March. I first read it when I was taking an early childhood literature class when I was studying for a master's degree in information library science. Middle School is Worse Than Meatloaf by Jennifer L. Holm. I got this book out of the library again just to show it for the video, but maybe I will read through it for a third time. It's just, so fun. This is told in a very non-traditional, like, I guess, collage style, like, for example, like comic books or coupons for like a pizza joint, or handwritten lists, notes from teachers, like report cards, like detention slips, letters to people, things torn out from like the newspaper, the TV guide, ballet program. And you can get to know like the main character Ginny and her story like extremely well, and the character development, and you understand like everything that's going on and why like Ginny is like her life is unraveling so much throughout her like junior high school, because there are a lot of dramatic events happening in her life, and like no one is really like taking time out to like ask her if she's okay, or if she needs to talk to someone, or maybe they can like do things a little bit differently or slow down with like the new step family and things like that. And there's also some problems with her older brother being a juvenile delinquent and getting into lots of trouble and eventually going away to like military school, and she's having lots of trouble with her friends. Obviously you can go back and watch that video I recently did on this book, but anyway, this is just like a really like fun, unique, innovative book. I really, really highly recommend it. It's not like a traditional narrative at all, but you don't need like classic prose to like completely understand everything that's going on and feel like completely like caught up in the story. 5. Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. What is your favorite book featuring the natural world? National Geographic's The Photo Ark Vanishing, The World's Most Vulnerable Animals by Joel Sartori. And he also has, like I mentioned, another book, like a regular photo ark book about animals who thankfully are not yet threatened in the wild, but if we don't watch or act, maybe like they will be threatened. It categorizes animals as ghosts, disappearing, fading, or dimming, and sometimes they have like pictures of like the last specimen of an animal who was like put into a little glass bottle if it was small enough, or stuffed with taxidermy. It's just a haunting reminder of what's been happening to a lot of animals, unfortunately. And it's like full of beautiful pictures and haunting, sobering details about species that were like hunted to extinction or extinction in the wild by the most dangerous predator in existence, like obviously humans. And it also tells how many are left, like how many species of a certain kind were like left in the wild, or like what year they became critically endangered and things like that. And it's totally like important because of this to have like zoos and wildlife preserves for breeding programs. Lovely pictures. I mean, they have all sorts of animals like birds. Oh, I love frogs so much. One of my favorite animals. I would love to have some pet frogs someday. And that's another book in the background I also picked up in that same section of the library, Wild Babies, photographs of animal babies. I absolutely love animals. I used to want to be a vet when I was younger, but I personally cannot like put an animal down. I just absolutely love animals so much, and that's one of the reasons I like this book. And here's another like beautiful animal. I love reptiles and amphibians, and obviously like primates and stuff. And the fish are also beautiful, and just so many wonderful pictures of these animals. I can't say enough. Just it's very, very sobering to think of how many of these animals are left in the wild, or sometimes they just have to be taken into human custody if we want them to survive at all, because there's no other hope for them. And thinking, oh, these beautiful animals used to live among us, but we were like greedy and like hunting and poaching and trapping them for their fur or whatever. We just didn't respect them enough, and so now we paying the price of losing beautiful animals. And just very, very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate how many humans behave more like beasts than actual so-called animal beasts living in the wild. We are the very, very dangerous predator, not all animals. We wish we would learn more about how to appreciate animals and live alongside them, because we were all put on this earth together for a reason. It wasn't so we could be dominate over them and abuse them and hunt them to extinction for sport, and like think animals don't have feelings and express love. Animals feel love very, very deeply, and I do believe animals have souls just like humans, and perhaps even greater souls, because they don't have any prejudice at all. They just love someone who's been good to them. They don't care what color your skin is, what your religion is, what you like look like, your ethnic group, if you're disabled, what's going on in your life. All they care is that you're a good human who loves them and takes care of them. And it's just, I just wish more people would like appreciate animals and the precious gift we have been given. It's just all these, I'm sorry if I'm rambling, I just love animals so much. Like it's my dream to someday, have a small hobby farm if I have, the time and the money and stuff to do that, or like to at least do something like helping on a farm sanctuary or on a kibbutz, because I just absolutely love animals. Even morally, I could not like be a vet because I personally could not put an animal down. It's just, not something I'm equipped to want to do morally. I'm sorry if I'm rambling. Just more cute animal pictures. I obviously do recommend you guys, check this book out if you're interested in animals. And obviously, again, this is the companion volume, like photo ark, just about regular animals in the wild. This isn't just like photography. It's about just like animals in general. It looks like some African wild dogs. It reminds me of that unfortunate story from the Pittsburgh Zoo a number of years ago. Number 6, Goodnight Moon by Margaret Wise Brown and illustrated by Clement Hurd. Do you read at bedtime? Do you read to someone else at bedtime? Did anyone ever read to you at bedtime? I'm usually writing during the witching hour and graveyard shift. And I don't do too much reading at bedtime anymore these days, but in the past I have, like as a child and preteen. My parents read to me, but they would often get annoyed because I read ahead from where we were. So like they would like pick up the story the next night. Oh, I already read 3 more chapters, and they were kind of frustrated because they wanted to follow the story with me. But I was like way too fast for them and just like wanted to like read it on my own. I didn't want to read like only 1 chapter a night. That's the same way I was with almost all the assigned readings in my English class and other classes where we had to read books. Like, why would I only read 1 chapter a week if it's a good book and I'm really enjoying it? I'm going to just, read ahead and maybe even finish the book several weeks before the rest of the class does, because I'm just, an advanced, quick reader like that. And as I mentioned, if I'm blessed with kids before time runs out, I will definitely be reading to them. Number 7, Guess How Much I Love You by Sam McBratney and illustrated by Anita Jerem. Who had the biggest influence on you as a reader? Well, as I've said, I needed no influence to read as a child, since it's just something I've always done since I had hyperlexia at age 3. Perhaps it could be said that Hermann Hesse had the most influence on me as I began coming of age, since Damien was the first adult novel I read on my own. In other words, like not for school, like voluntarily picking it up and choosing to read it because it just looked interesting, and there was no looking back after that. I read some books meant for teens, like particularly when like 14, 15 years old, but the vast majority of everything I read from age 14 onwards was adult fiction and nonfiction. My experience of reading and falling in love with Damien made me realize I wasn't limited to books meant for younger people, despite my age. Besides, I had always read about 4 grade levels up. Number 8, The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. Which book or set of books would you give to an emerging reader? Or which book have you given as a gift more than once? And now, I was thinking about the PJ library for my own community, the Jewish community, because I'm very familiar with these books from like reading them to the kids when I was working at an Orthodox day camp for 3 summers, and we would often take them to the John J. Bach branch of the Albany Public Library, which is near one of the Orthodox synagogues and where a lot of the kids live, and they have a very large Jewish children's section in their library, particularly with PJ library books. And now, see, these are a few of the PJ library books I saw when I was looking through them last night. Obviously, these are just a few examples. There are many, many more, and you can search by age range, although obviously you want to factor up, for example, if a child is reading 3, 4, 5 grade levels up like I did, you're not going to give, for example, a 5-year-old a book meant for a 5-year-old. You're going to do one for ages 8 and up, and they're about, religious, historic topics, picture books, simple to more and more complex. These are just absolutely lovely books, and God willing, someday I will have a child or children I can read these books to myself. Mitzis Mitzvah, written by Gloria Coster and illustrated by Holly Conger, about a puppy who helps residents of a nursing home with celebrating Rosh Hashanah. King David and Akavish the Spider, written by Sylvia Roos and illustrated by Ari Binus, about the spider who saved King David's life and later became his good friend. If you don't know the Magen David, the tradition states it was created by a spider who wove his web in that pattern when King David was hiding from King Saul in a cave, and so that's just we are very grateful to spiders. I love spiders. They're one of my 2 main spirit animals, and I'm saying that in a respectful way, not like a jokey way, by the way. I love spiders, and they're very important in my life. King Solomon and the Bee, written by Dahlia Hardolf Renberg and illustrated by Ruth Heller, a retelling of a story about a bee who repays King Solomon's kindness by helping him to solve a queen's difficult riddle. Benjis Blanket, written by Miguel Gouveia and illustrated by Raquel Catalina, about a tailor grandfather who constantly transforms a worn-out blanket into something new and useful. And I've actually read this book myself. It's very beautiful and touching, and I'm particularly emotionally touched by stories about grandfathers, since I lost my own grandfather in 2005, and I lost my second grandfather in 2007. So it just kind of sometimes it moves me almost to tears or makes me tear up, even if it's just just a children's book about a grandfather, particularly if the grandfather dies in the book near the end. Cakes and Miracles, written by Barbara Diamond Golden and illustrated by Jay Zollers, about a blind boy who helps his family by making hamantaschen to sell at Purim. Those are the 3-cornered cookies that resemble the hat of the villain Haman in the Purim story. You also can't go wrong with Amelia Bedelia, Richard Scarry, Dr. Seuss, or Shel Silverstein. Bilingual books are also great for acquiring a second language at the perfect age, and I did get a few more bilingual English-Spanish books when I was at the library today. After I liked the last 2 books I got so much, and I mentioned them in my previous video. It really helps me with refreshing my knowledge of Spanish. Anyway, I'm really looking forward to reading these books, even if I might not get to them before the readathon ends, because I'm really interested in refreshing my knowledge of Spanish and hopefully eventually graduating to reading a full-length adult novel in Spanish, because, unfortunately many students just don't get a chance to use a foreign language after they graduate unless they're, like, for example, doing business with a lot of people who speak that language, or they, like, move to that country, or they spend a lot of time visiting there. So anyway, look forward to possibly some future videos about these books if I'm, so inclined. So thank you very much for watching yet again. I hope I haven't been too rambling at all. My next video will be sometime later this week. I'll be wrapping up some of the more picture books I'm doing for the readathon, and I possibly might do a video for Yom HaShoah, like Holocaust Memorial Day, on April 27th. So look ahead to those subjects. Please, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. And obviously, I really, really appreciate seeing comments from people and liking the video and sharing across different social media. I'm really, really hoping I can continue building my channel and building greater virtual friendships with people in BookTube and AuthorTube. So thank you again very much for watching. See you soon. Bye.